First things first, Happy New Year, ManTFup fam. I'm Kimmy B.
And Lenny.
And it is officially 2024. We are kicking off season 3 of the ManTFup Podcast. I can't believe it, Len. We have been doing this for 3 years. Episode 77, which is 76 more than I thought that we would make it. So they just kidding.
The confidence just overwhelms me.
I'm kidding. No. We knew we'd always have stuff to talk about, and that has not changed over the past holiday season. In fact, we're going to jump right into today's conversation, but not before I tell you all to like, subscribe, share, and follow. Make sure as we're going along, if you hear anything, whether it's in the clip that we're going to play you or it comes out of our mouths that you agree with, disagree with, have alternative views on, please drop that in the comments. We love to hear from you. We love your insight. A lot of times it's what facilitates a future podcast episode. But Lenny sent me this clip.
But wait, I have something to say at the beginning.
Okay, go ahead.
Let's just do a poll of our followers. Who do you think's had to put up with more?
Oh God,
me or
me? Oh my God,
let's just go there. I'm putting it out there to our followers to really.
Who do you think has had to put up with more?
Yes,
Len or me?
Yeah. Okay.
It's not even going to be close, Len.
Okay.
It's not even going to be close.
Put a little side money on it.
Okay. Anyway, listen, speaking of side money and workplaces, if you want to up, no, I'm just kidding. Let's get into it, though. This is a really, really great clip. It's a little on the long side, but the information in it is absolutely, I'm not going to say it's mind-blowing because we've talked about a lot of what this actually has to do with before on the podcast. It's just nice to have it all in one place and really hear the numbers. So.
Yep, here we go.
But we're going to begin this hour with a not-so-bravo topic. We're talking about jobs and a major hiring crisis. It's a problem, really, bigger and older than the Great Resignation you've heard so much about. It's a problem you're not going to find in the unemployment rate, which is, of course, at near record lows. And it's because a large number of American men in particular, men in their prime working years, are actually not working, and they're not even looking for work. The result is a bit of a mystery and also a major hole in the American economy.
My name's Mike Rowe, and this is my job.
Of all the jobs he's done over the past 20 years.
Now get ready to get dirty.
And Mike Rowe has done them all as the host of Dirty Jobs on Discovery.
From machines that dump.
Well, now it's dirty jobs, isn't it?
The hoses that suck. Gee.
He's never claimed to be an economist.
Thank you.
But while taping the series during the Great Recession of 2008, he did notice something important.
All anybody was talking about was the number of people who were out of work. But on Dirty Jobs, even then, everywhere we went, we saw help wanted signs.
It turns out dozens of real-life economists and other researchers have a possible explanation: a long-term decline in male labor force participation. Or as one think tank summarized it, men not at work.
This is a men problem by and large, right?
Seems to be.
Look back to the 1950s, and 98% of men in their so-called prime working years had a job or were looking for one. That number has fallen ever since, to the point where today more than 7 million men have essentially dropped out of the workforce.
We've given a lot of people a lot of options. And incredibly, one of those options is do nothing. Do nothing.
Rowe and I met at Empire Metal, a fabrication and finishing shop in Queens, New York, and where, much like manufacturing shops nationwide, finding skilled workers like these is a growing challenge.
We have more jobs than we have people for, about 1.5 jobs for every one worker.
Jay Timmons, who leads the National Association of Manufacturers, describes all this as a profound problem for the companies he represents.
99.9% of them will say that their number one challenge right now is being able to fill those open jobs.
So you are here as a representative of more than 14,000 manufacturers in these United States. And the number one problem for 99 out of 100 of them is filling jobs.
Yeah. I never thought I'd be able to say that. But now it's kind of an all hands on deck. We've got to fill these jobs that are open.
And there are nearly 800,000 of those jobs open right now, according to the latest federal count, a number that surged in recent years as companies reinvest in American-made products, or try to anyway. And with manufacturing workers earning more than $30 an hour on average, Timmons says the problem is not pay, but perception.
It used to be dirty, dark, and dangerous. Today it's very sleek, it's very technology driven.
And that's what we saw when we visited Electrosoft, a company outside Philadelphia that makes circuit boards for everything from missiles to submarines.
So over there is the quality area where we do first piece article testing, final testing.
But CEO Carla Trotman says they could be doing more if only she had the workers to do it.
How many people work here right now?
30.
How many people do you wish worked here right now?
45.
So you got 15 people that you have jobs for,
yes,
but you can't find them.
Cannot.
How much money in lost business is there in not being able to hire the people that you want?
Around $5 million in top line revenue.
$5 million?
Yeah.
That would be here and that presumably you'd be paying taxes on.
Obviously,
and that would go into people's pockets and would be going out into the broader economy.
Yeah.
What is your theory about where those 15 people are right now?
I honestly have no idea where they are.
She suspects some people may be sitting out because of a recent change in the way many of us look at work.
I think it's fulfillment. I think it's culture. I think people really want to feel as though they are appreciated. I mean, Beyonce's song, she said, release your job. A lot of people release their jobs. They don't, and they realize, I mean, it's an overall feeling of being fed up and being taken for granted.
But there's more, according to one economist. Some non-working men face a skills mismatch. A third have criminal records, making them ineligible for many jobs and making employers hesitant to hire them. And many rely on safety nets, such as disability. So you may wonder, what are these guys doing instead of work? Well, kind of what you might expect. Spending nearly 7 hours each weekday on average, relaxing, playing games, and watching TV.
So how is it, from where you're sitting, from your understanding, that people can do nothing all day and still have enough money for a bag of chips?
Oh, well, it's almost as though some entity is paying them. It's almost as if somebody is not letting them fail. It's as if some giant parent somewhere has...
An uncle, maybe?
Could be a rich uncle, yes. Could be a very wealthy uncle.
Or it might come down to values. As many public schools have stopped offering shop class, many students have stopped even considering jobs like the ones Roe has spotlighted, dirty or otherwise.
It goes back to the stigmas and stereotypes and myths and misperceptions that are keeping guidance counselors from talking about opportunities like this to the kids in their care. It's those things that are keeping parents from putting all the options on the table.
How big of an issue is it to have this many people sitting on the sideline?
It's only a matter of our national identity. I think it's a giant issue. And by the time we realize how big an issue it is, we're going to have a hard time turning the temperature down.
It's a fascinating story.
7 million men. And they're watching 7 additional hours of TV and relaxing.
Yeah, that figure got me.
It's wild.
Are the women in their lives or the partners in their lives working?
So this is where it gets a little bit political. People on the right will say these guys are just living off government largesse. They're getting disability, they're benefiting from aid, and that's got to be reformed. And people on the left say they just need to be trained up. And yeah, in the meantime, they're living at home or they're depending on partners.
You mentioned this skills mismatch, and it just made me think, you know, my grandfather was a machinist, which is a highly skilled job. Not anybody, you have to be trained to do that. And I don't know a lot of machinists now in 2023. And I wonder if people are being trained for that. And he mentions Mike.
So Mike Rowe has a foundation called Mike Rowe Works, where he does give people scholarships for that kind of training. That's part of the issue. But like Carla Trotman, the woman in Philadelphia who runs the circuit board manufacturing facility, she'll train you herself. If you're in the Philadelphia area, they're looking for 15 people there. It pays well. It's a nice, clean, quiet place to work. So go there. By the way, some people think, oh, maybe these guys are doing more stay-at-home dadding. That's an optimistic point of view. I looked at the numbers. Shauna Thomas, our executive producer, brought this up. In fact, these guys who are not working and not looking for work are spending less time caring for other household members than the guys who are at work. So they're doing less childcare, not even a little bit more.
I don't know, but an able-bodied man who can work and doesn't, it's not attractive. I'm just going to say, not attractive.
And on that note,
okay, I'm just saying for a friend.
The stay-at-home dudes are gonna try to cancel Gail.
Yeah.
For saying they're not attractive. Len, That one clip is about 6 podcasts worth of conversations. There's so many different, as we like to call them, wormholes, rabbit holes that you could go down when listening to that. So where would you like to start?
That's a good question. I mean, listen, let's leave the politics out of this because that's not really where we need to go in this. Clearly, they were pushing a little bit on that in the interview, or at least Mike Rowe was.
Yeah.
That it was,
Yeah.
you know, a political thing. I think it's a lot to do with early childhood education and, you know, middle school education, maybe more middle school than early, but it's like everybody's hands off nowadays. It's you know,
so
you're hard pressed to find a kid that can change a tire.
You're talking about education. I think it starts even before that. I think it starts with what you witness as a child, as far as your family unit goes, the people you're surrounded by, the community that you live in. We've talked about this ad nauseum on this particular podcast, how you grew up, how I grew up, the area that I come from. Again, New England, fishing community, hardworking blue-collar people. We also had Titleist there, a Cushnet company. These were big manufacturing, towns. People would literally, if you could have willed your job in some of these manufacturing plants to a child, the same way people will, season tickets to the Chicago Cubs or to the Boston Red Sox, they would have, because these were the jobs that in this particular community people sought.
And there was a lot of those. There was a lot of those, grandfather, father, son jobs in manufacturing throughout the years in this country. I mean, this country was built on, manufacturing.
Yeah. Well, that and then beyond that, when I think back to my friends, the social circle that I ran in, again, elementary school, middle school, high school. My elementary and middle school, I grew up in a smaller town, and I would say almost every friend of mine's father, in particular, worked in a trade, worked in a blue-collar skilled trade, whether it was construction, electrical, plumbing, welding. That's what they did. A lot of them had stay-at-home wives, moms, you know what I mean? Or the moms were maybe teachers, things like that, providing very nice middle-class, lifestyles. They were at Disney World once, maybe twice a year. And I'm not saying that because that's what you prioritize, but they owned homes.
Yeah.
They had 2 cars. Their kids were involved in sports.
They made a living.
A lot of them owned their own businesses after working for other people. A lot of them had their own, electrician practice, or I don't know if that's what you would call it, or plumbing,
plumbing
business,
company.
or, my first boyfriend in high school, his dad had a welding company. He then he being my boyfriend, went to a vocational high school, stepped in, and they did HVAC work, right?
Mm-hmm.
Never didn't have a job.
Yeah. And never will not have a job.
Yeah, I mean, and there were times, obviously, in recession, especially if you're in a smaller town, I mean, everybody gets hit. People are maybe not building as much, or people are maybe, you don't have the mini malls going up to the same degree that you would. But again, they always were employable because there was always somebody whose air conditioning broke down, or there was always a company that needed you to come in and redo their ventilation system.
And like they mentioned, there's, there's become a stigmatism to that type of job that is not being glorified by any parents or any community.
But how did that happen so quickly? Because again, I'm obviously not young, but I'm not old by any stretch of the imagination. I'm 42. I'm 42. Which means, 25 years ago I was in high school, and I told you, like, in my small-ish town, we had access to, we didn't have a high school in my town. So we had access to 3 or 4 local high schools that we could go to. Mm-hmm. On top of an additional 2 that were vocational high schools, specifically. Obviously, you had academics. You graduated. Wasn't that they weren't teaching you math and science and the rest of it, but they were training you up in a vocation. There were 2 of those in a very small area, right? And those schools were always at capacity. I would say probably half of my friends from middle school actually attended a vocational school. I was telling Nestor that we also had an agricultural high school. It was called Bristol Aggie, and that was where you could go if you wanted to work in the agricultural field. You know what I mean? So you had options. And again, it was like, looking around, my friends all had great childhoods. You know what I'm saying? Like, we all have trauma and all of that, but I'm just saying, when I look back on it, none of us lacked. When I got to high school, I think I got more because I was at a city.
So do you know anybody that was your friend in high school that is now in a trade?
Yeah, I told you, my first boyfriend, like that, he took over the family business. He's a welder. He ended up making furniture as a side hustle. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? Like, I don't want to say in his downtime, but things would, we were talking about it before. We were saying even up north, if I had friends who were in construction, and up north, construction works a little different than it does down here. It slows in the winter months, right? Like they don't do as much.
Depending on what part.
Some of them would relocate. They would come to Florida. They'd have dads that would, leave for 3 months, come down, get jobs down here. I know that, a lot of the stuff, or a lot of those trades in the Northeast in particular, we were union. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And
growing up down here, we didn't have the big manufacturing companies like, the Northeast or Michigan
But beyond manufacturing, but I'm talking about even like the jobs that Buddy is showing on that show, right? You're talking about sanitation workers. Yeah. You're talking about people that pump septic systems for a living. You're talking about people that, roofing and tile, manual labor. Yeah, I get that it's not sexy. I get that. But have you talked to people who work for sanitation companies and work their way up through the system, the money that, they make? And it's crazy because as I'm sitting here scrolling through the comments on that particular clip, you can tell, you can see the pivot, Len. Every comment, it's like these people are looking at it strictly from a college-educated, corporate America perspective. It's completely missed the problem. Most jobs don't provide a living wage or benefit. Somebody said, who is thinking that $31 an hour is not a livable wage? It's over $60,000 a year. Notice how the wages for these jobs are never discussed. They say some jobs paying over $30 an hour, like that means something. I'm in the Denver area, $30 an hour, get you maybe a 1 or 2 bedroom apartment. Okay, well, that's better than no bedrooms. Person, so that company would rather lose $5 million. Like, there's no loyalty anymore. As I read through a lot of these, they're not talking about what I took away from that or what you took away from that, which was the fact that we're missing 800. They said it. There's 800,000 manufacturing jobs alone that are not being filled. Never mind the trade job.
That pay starting in that pay range. If you have an entry-level manufacturing job at a big manufacturing company, you're looking at $25 an hour plus benefits. So, who's saying that?
And I got to be honest, those jobs aren't in New York City.
They're not,
and do you understand what I mean by that?
I get the living wage thing when we talked about the living wage thing with the McDonald's and the Wendy's.
But I also get it. I get it when you're talking about that in a Miami, right? Yeah. Like, I understand. Like, to me, I don't know. Like,
$30 an hour in Miami, you can live. You can live. Listen, how bougie you want to live is a different story.
But regardless, but I'm saying, I don't look at manufacturing. Like, when I think about Miami, I don't think manufacturing, right? But I do think of all the construction that's happening here.
Oh, yeah.
And I think, where are the carpenters? Where are the electricians? Where are the plumbers? Where are, again, the welders? Like, we have so much infrastructure that needs to be replaced in this country. So I'm not looking at it from a manufacturer. We just saw, what is it, UPS or FedEx? They make $170,000. Now, they don't all make that, and you don't start at that. And that's their entire compensation package. That's pension, that's benefits, that's health. There's a lot of things that go with that.
Yeah, but they work their ass off.
1,000. But again, who is looking down their nose at $170,000, at $80,000, at $100,000 without having any? And this is, you don't need a college degree, right? And I'm a person, that's not my lane. Like,
well, a lot of people are there's that whole movement against you don't need a college degree. Like,
but you don't.
What's his name? No, you're right. And a thing about a college degree, and this is the only reason I think kids should get a college degree, is it gives them that sense because it's their first real independence. They have to earn it themselves. There's no high school, there's no high school teachers might, parents are still involved. When it gets to college, it's either you pass or fail.
Lenny, you didn't need it. You didn't so again, if you're talking about privileged children, and I don't want to take the privilege in that super extreme direction. What I'm saying to you is there's many children out there that college is not their first taste of independence.
No.
Because you weren't like that.
That's fine. And I understand that. It's their first sense of completion. For my kids,
high school is your first sense of completion. Like, why did we make it where everybody all of a sudden
because high school, a lot of kids still have their parents. A lot of kids
but that doesn't mean you didn't complete something. You made it through.
In high school now, they don't give a fuck if you pass or fail. They push you to the next grade. There's a lot of kids.
That's 1000% not true. Like
That is true.
That doesn't happen at your kid's school. So who are you talking about?
Yeah, but I'm privileged. Remember, I'm talking about the non-privileged.
Okay, but that's not, and that's not every school. And again, at the end of the day, guess what? College isn't for everybody. Like, this is weird.
I'm not saying that college is for everybody.
So no,
I'm not saying my youngest doesn't want to go to college.
Yeah, but the problem. And guess what? Look at you.
He wants to be a mechanic.
He should. But so you know where he shouldn't be in school? School Nova, wherever he's going. He should be in a great vocational school where he would already be coming out, hitting the ground running. He's lucky enough that he has you. Like
he's in that. He's learning all of those things. His interest in that stuff is being perpetuated by me.
By you.
So
by you.
He doesn't need to be in another school.
Not every kid had.
No.
Honey, let's be clear here. I Googled, to your point, like you're weird because you're like, this doesn't sound like a very Len argument. Like you literally just sat here on this podcast and said every kid should go to college. When
I did not say that. I did not say every kid to go.
You just said I think every kid should graduate. It's their first taste of independence.
I said the benefit of kids going to college as a perspective. I know not every kid is cut for college. Not every.
It's not about being cut. It's about some kids want to come out and just start making money.
That's
great. What does college, unless you are going to be a doctor, if you're going to be a lawyer, something where you need additional postgraduate work, you want to, maybe you want to be a professor, like long term. To your point, it's literally just it's a fuck off.
How about okay, you want to be a mechanic, you want to be a welder, you want to be, a plumber. Great. What's wrong with doing 2 years of business college? So that you understand the economics, because they don't teach you shit in public school except how to pass a fucking test.
Yeah, but Lenny, okay, but you're still telling somebody that can go out and make money. I can go back and go to business school at any point in time.
You're right.
What I'm saying is if I come out of a high school, if I know that this is not, that's a different conversation, because now you're talking about how do I start my own business. Once I've gotten my feet wet, I've earned my stripes, and I'm at a level where I no longer want to work for somebody else. I don't, I want to own my own.
The bottom line is kids are not being encouraged to go into these jobs.
But
that's what the bottom line is.
That is the bottom line. But you'd be surprised
and somebody's
to know
supporting them.
But Gen Z, I looked this up because I was boom. We've had this conversation before. And, we always want to talk about, it's the kid. And it's not, because they actually have an overwhelming respect for people who work in the trades. Many of them are actually considering a trade because they're looking at corporate America going, what the,
I have two Gen Zs.
I get it. So can I just tell you what I did research on? I know, but like you said, one of them is whatever. The other one wants to go to college. I get that. They're also still in a very privileged school. I'm going to explain to you why I'm saying this. So these kids want to do this, but they're telling you that they're being told, again, ad nauseum, go to college, go to college, go to college. That's how you're going to make your money. And then at least a third of them have no access to shop classes, right? So if your dad... You have owned construction companies. You love fucking around with cars. Like, you enjoy working with your hands.
Yes, he's lucky.
You are able to foster that and have been from a young age, right? Like, these are the things that you prioritize. But we've talked about, again, my ex-boyfriend had a dad who was a welder. He followed in his footsteps. We've clearly got this disconnect where people fell out of that.
Yeah, well, I mean, it started with taking it out of schools because
yeah, but that didn't happen that long ago. I don't know when
it happened.
No,
how long ago does it have to happen for it to become
I had it when here's the deal.
damaging to our society?
But my friends, we are that generation that's raising Gen Z people. Like you, me, like these are my friends have kids that are 17, 18 years old. We had parents. We grew up in a community that people had skilled trade jobs, and we also had access to shop in my regular high school.
Yes.
As well as vocational school.
But look, my wife didn't take a shop class in high school.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
It didn't mean that they didn't have access to them, though.
No, there was access. There was a wood shop class. There was no.
But she was never going to. That wasn't something she wanted to do. I get it.
But now she has a kid. So now her kid, if the parents didn't take the shop class, the parents can't do it. But the kid no longer has the option to take a shop class. Joey didn't have an option to take a shop class. You know, so the kids in public school today don't have that option. So even if the parent wasn't that mechanical person, yet their son is or daughter is, they don't have the option anymore. They took it out 20 years ago.
They didn't take it out 20 years ago.
I'd bet it's close to 20 years.
No. I was in school 20 years ago. Like, so, no, we still had it. I just don't think that in certain communities.
26 years ago.
And then I was in college, like Lenny. Yeah, it didn't just, the year I graduated, they didn't get rid of shop. And guess what? We still have a vocational school. All the schools that were available to me are still open. The same ones. What I'm saying is, living in Florida, I went and I Googled it. There's one vocational school in Broward. You have Sheridan and McFadden. Yeah. 2 for the 6th largest. You're not helping your case. For the 6th largest school district in the country. 2, can you shut your face for 2 seconds, please? Because I'm going to tell you what makes it even worse. When you go to the website, Len, you can't even find the information on the vocations that they teach at that school. So, to your point, if I have parents that are not mechanically inclined, but I'm a Gen Z kid that's going, listen, college is not for me. I don't want to come out $100,000 in debt. I don't have guidance counselors that are encouraging me to go the vocational route, right? So let me do a little due diligence myself and look it up. When I get to the website and I click on the little table of contents in the corner, it's telling me about the academics, math, science, English. Nowhere on the homepage, anywhere that I looked, could I find the vocations that I could get training in.
Yeah. No boat building, no
machinist. Not listed.
No, nothing.
So it's also a magnet school, which means I have to apply and be accepted, right? Like this is a whole other part of the process. And mind you, Broward County is pretty damn big. So how am I now getting to this one of 2 technical schools? And the rest of them that were listed out, because I Googled vocational high schools, are all colleges. So now I've gone through regular school 4 years, right, to come out and say, okay, now they're gonna ask me to cut them a check, right? If I'm going to a technical college, whether it's for aviation, HVAC, whatever,
engineering,
right? And we've seen there's a bunch of them. Now I have to cut you a check. There's ones for radio that charge you $15,000, $20,000 a year and are not even accredited properly, right? Like, so they're just literally taking your money. Whereas, again, not that long ago, 20, 25 years ago, in a community that I grew up in, those were options for public education. So you had your college prep high schools, and then you had your and they still offered sports and extracurriculars and everything else.
Listen, you need that art, sports, fine motor. It's like you're losing that ability. The kids are just not getting it. It's they should be forced to take a shop class or a cooking class.
And again,
forced.
I see this on Facebook sometimes. And they're like, there should be classes where they teach you how to do laundry. And I'm like, it's called home ec. It exists. Yeah. And stop acting like you. I don't know. Again, we had it in my little ass town in rural Acushnet. We had, and this was to your point, this was in middle school. And we also had wood shop and metal shop in middle school. And we all, boys and girls, took both. Right? Like, we weren't doing anything major. We were building a flower box or maybe making a little, we took
a car completely apart in 7th grade. Completely apart. The whole entire car. Right in North Miami Beach and Aventura.
Yeah.
Gone.
So, again, you have these options, and that can even just be for a hobby. I don't know. It doesn't have to be what you want to do long term. But the fact that it's not offered to you from a high school, like a public high school perspective, that has to do with American values. When we talk about education, if we've fallen away from that, again, to your point, what was this country built on? You know, when we talk about labor, and I get that it's back. I understand that, but guess what? Somebody has to do it. And if it can provide for your family and it can provide you with benefits and employment and your basic necessities, which many of these can, and I get it, like, not every state is a union-friendly state. We know this. You know, I don't think that it's fallen off quite as much because I Googled the same thing for Pennsylvania. I said vocational high schools in Pennsylvania, Lenny, 300.
I believe it.
Do you know what I mean? Massachusetts, same thing. And they even have, there's a lawsuit in Massachusetts right now because they said they are systematically keeping underprivileged children from attending these vocational schools because they know that it's an easy route to financial independence, to kind of, you know, hitting the ground running. So that's a different conversation, obviously. But there's clearly an inherent value in providing people with training, not to mention...
Listen, my current jobs require my brain, okay? That was a choice I made. And you know why I never worried about taking care of my family? Using my brain, because I always knew I could always swing a hammer. I always knew I had that base of general contractor and being able to build whatever needs to be built. I always had it. I'll always survive. I don't care if the economy falls apart. People are going to need somebody to, you know,
what about
board up their houses.
It's not even about the economy. We don't even have to say doomsday.
No, but it's
natural disasters.
Anything.
Do you know what I'm saying? Like, shit happens. And not only that, everything always needs to be updated and upgraded. Like, we're looking at a problem as a nation right now, as far as we haven't had a massive infrastructure overhaul since the first one in what? Well, you had the one 30s, 40s, or post World War II.
Yeah, I mean.
And then what, 50s, 60s maybe? Yeah. We haven't done it in a good 50 years, though.
No.
Roads, bridges, buildings. I mean, and on top of that, you're seeing booms in so many places in Texas and in Florida.
The roads and the infrastructure in the United States has become big business. So, you know, I just saw an article the other day about that stupid thing they're building in Miami next to the Arch Center. You know, how they're taking forever and
well, the Palmetto.
It's
and the Big Dig in Boston.
You know, it's funny, and I heard this 20 years ago, and I didn't understand it at that time, I don't think. But the highway is 10 lanes wide, right? So, okay, we're going to widen it to 15 lanes. It takes 10 years to do the highway from Miami to Palm Beach widened. So their study is based on widening it for the traffic that they anticipate by then. So when it's finished, you're going to be sitting in the same fucking gridlock you were sitting in 10 years before. The reason they do that, instead of building it abundant so that in 10 years the traffic is easier,
they'll still have jobs.
Job security and funding. They can't get the funding in 10 years if the roads are already good. So it's one of those perpetual construction jobs that never goes away because people are eating off of it for their entire generational life, because the people who do the roads in Florida are pretty much the same group. They own all the contracts. It's a closed thing. So, and nobody can do anything to them. It's now a city job. You can't get fired. So no matter how long they take, no matter how long falls behind, no matter what mistakes are made, they're still getting paid and they're still building. And the only people inconvenienced are the people that live in that.
I mean, it's not city.
Have you ever
employees? It's private.
It's private contractors,
that
but they get government contracts.
Yeah.
So a government contract pretty much puts them in. The employees can all get fired.
So why doesn't the government just build it? Like, we've had this conversation. I believe that the Army.
I mean, you've lived here for how long? 20-something years?
Yeah. I mean, but you know how I feel about this. We're getting off.
Yeah, we're getting off
topic.
Yeah.
But like, I feel like there's, again, when you're talking about empowering people to get those big contracts, it starts. Starts somewhere. It starts with
trade.
You know what I'm saying? But the more we fall away from it, you can't get mad if the same 10 families have all the contracts because they've kept it in the family while the rest of us have been out here running in the corporate hamster wheel. You know what I mean? And again, I'm sitting here as a person who talks for a living, but I guess to some degree I have a trade, right? I mean, I wasn't necessarily trained in it, but I'm clearly not the bricklayer or the painter or any of those things. However, I have so much respect and such a strong belief and understanding of their necessity. And I find it so frustrating that we've gotten so far away from this. Like, yeah, a college degree is fantastic. The only thing my time at the University of Miami gave me was relationships, a lot of student debt, and you know, I took a lot of courses and a lot of things, and I majored in a lot of things before something finally stuck. So I feel like I'm equipped to talk about a lot of things a little bit. You know what I'm saying? Like, I know a little bit about a lot of stuff, right? That's what college gave me. Relationships, networking, and things of that nature, right? And some time away from my family. I mean, whatever. I was always an independent person, so that I didn't really need necessarily college for that. I always liked making money. That didn't impact my work ethic or whatever.
Yeah, but when you graduated, how did you feel? Did you feel like you did it all on your own?
Did I feel like I did it all on my own? Yeah, I mean, yeah, I felt...
It's just a sense of accomplishment that you get.
It is, but I felt accomplished when I graduated high school. I felt more accomplished getting a job. I mean, we've taken away from what college is. I mean, we've watered down everything, you know? Mm-hmm. It's tons of people. I feel like anybody can go to college and can get good grades. It's what did you do once you got out? Did you get a job? Like,
you know, the other side to this coin is there's jobs in the corporate world that pay well that are not being filled also because people feel like they're not being compensated enough. Or so there's a lot of jobs out there. I mean, I know just because we've been trying to hire people, skilled people. Mm-hmm. Like, you went to college, graduated to do this, and why aren't you working now? Because we're not paying you enough? I mean, it's even if you up the pay, it's still very hard to find qualified people. So I don't know, from a business owner's perspective, I don't know where all this skilled labor is going. All this,
but you know what's
highly
ironic?
Trained labor is.
When I look at even what you do, though, right? It's like coding, right? There are kids that are going to school for coding, mm-hmm. but if you go back not that long ago, there were 12 and 13-year-olds who were teaching themselves how to do this, right? And again, coming out and finding employment at 17 and 18 and 19 years old, writing code, creating apps, doing back-end stuff. Like, so as much as it's a skill that, and now there's entire, you know, college curriculums dedicated to this, and we obviously need more of it in our middle school. But again, there's so many things. It's like so much of what becomes a necessity is self-taught, right? In the beginning.
This particular industry.
But then we turn it into a money-making scheme for, you know, as opposed to just providing it at the public education level. Like when we talk about the coding thing, right? Why should, if a 10-year-old can teach themselves how to do it and can take a computer apart and put it back together, use computers, whatever, why should a 19-year-old have to incur $150,000 worth of debt to go to college to learn it when you could obviously teach it to them in middle school and high school and they could come out
except
and go.
Except the way the system is set up, it's not made to pull those kids out. Not every kid is made for coding. Not every kid is made for coding.
No.
So it's, you know, that is something that really should be clearly defined in their lower school, in their first through
But that's also like saying, you know, not every person is meant to be an architect or an engineer.
Correct. It's the same thing.
However, you could find those people in a vocational school, right? Like if you're, and what I'm saying is, once you get your feet wet in something, I think as an individual, you determine how far you want to take it, right?
Correct.
Like not every carpenter is going to become, or every construction worker is going to become a general contractor, right? But once you love it and you work in it, as you aspire to more, some people will just tap out, right? They'll reach their max. Go, you know what, this is a good life for me, and I'm happy right here. I don't want the responsibility. I don't want to have to manage people. I want to come in, do what I do, and go. Like, and that to me is the beauty of what the American education system or any education system should offer to people, right? Like, you give them a skill, and then what they choose to do with that is on them, because it's like telling somebody a metal, like you can still go on and become an engineer. You can become a civil engineer. You know what I mean? Like you could have this, and to your point, you still always know that if it falls apart in the corporate world or you get burnt out, guess what? I can still go back and pick up a blowtorch and weld some shit.
Yeah.
Right? Like,
I mean,
so I don't know. Like,
I get it, but it's, again, it seems like everything goes back to, for me, early childhood education. I don't know why I keep going to that, but it's like, I know that Joey is strong in math and that Miranda is strong in English. So for us, and at their school, privileged, so to speak, at their school, they've focused them into the areas where they're strong, which public school does not do for our kids. I mean, a kindergartner, you could go in 25 kindergartners and give them a crayon, and you can tell who's going to be the artist. So,
but again, you can't.
Our school doesn't do that.
You have to blame it on parents too, though.
No, I do.
You have to if you listen to what you literally just said. You and Rachel both realized this about your children, and you made the concerted effort.
The school brought it to our attention.
Okay, so you didn't know Joey was mechanically inclined when he was younger?
Mechanically inclined is different. I'm talking about math and English with them.
Okay, but how long have they? My point is, though, you've put them in a place that can foster that. Like, I could read when I was 3. What did my mom do? Got me books and encouraged me reading.
Let me ask you a question.
Not every parent will do that, though.
Why do public schools not have the same resources?
You can't say that. Stoneman Douglas does. It's every public school. You have to be very specific here, because we have some incredible. My high school in Massachusetts was a public high school. We put multiple students in Ivy Leagues every single year. We were top tier in athletics, so kids were getting scholarships, and we had automotive.
Okay, so if they have the money, then why don't they have the ability to give the kids their strong points and bring the kids up? Because everything is based on, in Florida, everything's based on the testing in the lower levels.
But again, part of this goes back to parents, community, and culture in your state, right? Like, and maybe it speaks more to the people of Florida at large than it does to just the public education system failing. It's what are you fighting for? What are you looking for? What are you asking your, elected officials for? Again, I Googled vocational schools in Pennsylvania. 300 came up. I Googled them in Florida. When I Googled specifically my area, 2 for the 6th largest school district in the country came up, right? Again, Massachusetts, a very cerebral education-focused state. We know this. This is something that they invest in, and I feel like the parents in that state, because it's a part of the culture, it's how you're brought up. You take education serious. It's something that you value, whether that's college or not.
You have to also look at what, and not to defend Broward County, because I hate Broward County schools, not to defend them, but you also have to look at the availability of jobs in certain areas in South Florida. And we've already talked about there's no manufacturing here. There's starting to be manufacturing.
That's not what you're learning in a vocational school, though, is not manufacturing.
Well, no,
we are one of the construction booming
Yes.
Like, so you can't tell me that. Like, when you're talking about, we have so many people moving here, like from an infrastructure perspective, everything we're talking, even when you talk about.
They don't really teach that in vocational school.
What?
Construction.
They teach carpentry. They teach they teach electrical. They teach plumbing. They teach all the things. What are you teaching at a vocational school if you're not teaching that?
Well, McFadder teaches boat building, AutoCAD.
I told you I can't tell you what Sheridan teaches because they don't list it.
And mechanics. There's not a lot of. I only know because I'm a general contractor in the state of Florida. Mm-hmm. There's not a lot of vocational schools that teach you trades.
Here.
Okay. Here that teach you trades.
That's what vocational schools are supposed to teach you.
Yeah, but they teach you different, not construction trades. Sorry, construction trades.
But again, are you ready? So FIU has a program. So this is where it all gets mind-blowing here. FIU has a program. They won't ask you for your papers, nothing, because this is how in demand people in the construction trades are. It's like is it a 10-week course or a 10-month course? I can't remember how long it is, but it's pretty intensive. And they give you a full 360 approach to construction. You go in there, they teach you a little bit of electrical, they teach you a little bit of plumbing, they teach you, carpentry, all the things that you would need to go jump on a work site, because they know the average construction worker in Miami-Dade County is clearing $65,000 a year.
Yes.
They were begging people. They were coming on my radio program saying, listen, this is available. We are not going to ask for any sort of anything. And this is a state-funded school, university, and this was specifically for construction. And they have an incredible engineering program there. I mean, FIU is a phenomenal school. So it's not that they're trying to limit you into just being a tradesman, right? And I don't mean to
I get it.
Diminish that, but
I don't feel,
because obviously people could continue on, and that's their whole deal, is that once you've been through this program, right, if you want to continue on in any of the engineering or architectural programs, obviously you have to still get into the school, but those programs are available to you. How can you have a college that can see the demand, but your vocational high schools don't get it? I mean, we have a ton of, from aerospace type of careers here in Florida too. We have how many airports?
There's an aerospace company that makes stuff for rockets a block away from my warehouse.
But again, you heard the man in the clip that we played talk about how his grandfather was a machinist, right? Mm-hmm. So if you're talking, those are the things that you're supposed to be learning. We have oil rigs everywhere, right? You're talking about offshore drilling and all of this. These guys are clearing $1,000 a day. I just saw an insane video on social media. Somebody was asking, would you be willing to do this? And it is back-breaking labor. Like, you have to tip your hat to these incredible humans that are out there doing what they're doing. You've got underwater, they're maritime welders, because there's a difference between underwater welding and maritime welding. I did not know that. Somebody made it very clear in the comments. Yes. But again, these are all specialized trades, but you can be 19 and 20 and have gotten, you need a little bit more experience, I think, before they'll send you out on a rig to do that.
Yeah, but a lot of those companies will train you.
Yeah.
A lot of those companies will put you
through the training. But these are not, no college degree necessary.
No.
But you need to have some real life.
Balls.
Well, balls and real life experience, right? But again, high schools that have trained you in machinery, in welding, give you that. You come out, you apprentice. And I'm not saying that you're going to come out clearing $100,000 a year, because, people will be laughing at me in the comments. I know that, your entry level electrician isn't coming out and making $150,000 a year.
No, but they're probably making $20, $25 an hour.
But, and we understand in 2024, depending on where you are at, that ain't nothing. But you don't just have to live in New York City or San Francisco. Like, they need welders all over the country. They're drilling, they're building pipeline everywhere. Like, we can't keep focusing on what the cost of living is. I complain about the cost of living in Miami because I live here. And what I do for a living, I can't just go anywhere and get a job doing what I do for a living, right? Unless I self-employ myself, or if I'm self-employed. But as far as construction, all of these things, they're needed everywhere. There's nowhere on this planet where they don't need somebody that can build something or that can wire
Yeah. There's a lot of jobs overseas that pay big money.
Well, I had a friend who was an underwater, not a friend, my uncle's best friend was an underwater welder, and he'd be gone for 3 months at a time. Made bank, stupid money, hazard pay, had phenomenal benefits offered by every company that he worked for. You know, a lot of times he would operate as an independent contractor, so he'd have to provide for himself. But then there were other times where that was part of the contract. You know, life insurance, this, that. I mean, all kinds of stuff. So I don't know. It's just, it's scary to that your favorite word, scary, when you see a clip like this, because at some point, somebody's got to do it, right? And that brings up the other conversation that we're not going to get into today. But don't get mad when it's the immigrants coming here, you know what I mean, that are willing to step up and go take that course at FIU, where they're basically paying you to go out and earn a living.
Yeah.
Because it's free. It's not like they're asking you to pay them.
They're only taking your jobs because you're not taking your jobs.
And by you, it's like we're just not encouraging Americans. And guess what? Saw the dopest thing yesterday. So I live in Hollywood, and they're doing a ton of development in Hollywood right now. I saw like 3 girls walk off a construction site. Like it was like the end of the day, and they were walking out. And
did they whistle at you?
They did not. I was in a car. No, the girls did not whistle at me. Neither did the guys. I'm losing my touch, But it just felt good to see that. You know what I mean? And they weren't ostracized. They were with the guys. And it's like, I think you're seeing, we've had, I don't remember her name right now. Not Chelsea, but you know what I'm talking about. She was one of our first guests. And she grew up in the construction, general contracting space, you know, as a woman who has been in this world. And I think it's becoming more and more common. So, you know, women aren't being kept out of the trades, and you can make a really good living. Again, it's hard work, but that's like saying, you know, I know women who are firefighters and fire medics, and they got to go through the same training as the men, but talk about a feeling of accomplishment, you know, when you come in at the front of the pack and you know that you've just earned your way into this, you know, elite group of people. Like, that's amazing. But you're right, we don't talk about it, and it's not glorified on social media, and that's the sad truth, is that if kids aren't seeing it, right, and people aren't getting a ton of likes and views and shares, then it's not piquing their interest. Everybody's not meant to be an entrepreneur. Everybody doesn't have the hustle to be an entrepreneur. Like, people think that shit is easy, and it's like, you know, you're mad about 40 hours a week? You're mad about 40 hours a week. Oh, well, if I was being
and
compensated, but I'm not working 80. Bitch, an entrepreneur is working 24/7, you know, and
not to mention, and they get paid last, by the way. They get paid last. Everyone that works for them or does work for them gets paid first.
So it's, you know, I don't know. I feel like the narrative, again, we mentioned it at the beginning of the podcast. There's so many wormholes you can go down. And I don't want to just come for the 7 million men that aren't working right now. And by the way, that age group was 25 to 54. So that is in the prime of your working years. But it's like, when did we become afraid of hard labor? Like, it's funny to me, we have this whole like,
it's the pussification of America.
But these dudes will get in the gym and they'll squat 500, you know what I mean? Like, they'll get down and they'll literally shred their hands up at CrossFit. But you don't want to swing a hammer?
You know,
you don't want to build some shit?
Not glory.
Like, yeah, but when you're standing outside of a building and you look up, like, I'm reading a book, Lenny.
I mean, you could just say you're an independent contractor.
But I'm reading a book, and this dude is talking about working on the Eiffel Tower, right? And it's a historical fiction, so it's not a real person. Mm-hmm. But the sense of accomplishment that these individuals felt, right?
Yeah.
When you build this once-in-a-lifetime structure, right? Like, you're talking about feeling accomplished, graduating college. Yes, you feel that. But I would think you'd feel the same way when you finish a house.
Oh, yeah. Absolutely.
You know what I mean? Or when the Palmetto actually gets done. The Palmetto's a highway here in Miami-Dade County, by the way. You know, like, there's a sense of accomplishment that comes with anything you're passionate about.
The Palmetto will
ever
never get done.
Never in life. You know, so it's kind of like your son built an incredible model ship.
Yeah.
9,000 pieces.
Yeah.
You can't tell me he didn't feel fucking accomplished as shit when it was done. And so did you. Look at, you're showing it to, like, you know, random, like, look at what Joey did. It's like, I don't know. How do we get back to that? How do we remind people that, you know,
working with your hands is not a bad thing.
And that there's a greater sense of accomplishment than going viral, guys. Like there are other ways to feel like you've made it than by having a video that makes it onto, you know, Bleacher Report or No Jumper or The Shade Room or any of these sites. You know what I mean? Like that to me this is where people's sense of accomplishment comes from now. How many followers they have, how many likes they have. I guarantee you, some hot ass construction worker starts posting reels from a construction site and building shit. He'll have more girls sliding in his DMs because that video that I was looking at of the offshore people, you should have seen the comments. These women were like, man, he gets nothing but food and see when he gets home.
Yeah.
Like literally, like this was
the only problem is the rest of the neighborhood gets it when he's away.
Some of them, there may have been some people alluding to that too, but no. You know, but it was, no, not if you have a loyal. Again, a very different conversation. But women do still, and this is obviously coming from a very
value,
you know,
a hardworking
man. You know, and I think, and even men value that. I mean, I think in your partner, you just value somebody that works hard.
In your
employees,
nothing wrong with you value that.
Yeah.
You know, it's work ethic. It's, you know, it's crazy. It's crazy that we've come to this in this country.
Well, that and the other side of this is if you don't start reinvesting in these trades, you've worked in construction a long time, right?
Yeah.
And I've lived in different
forget about
and build the quality. No, but the quality of the craftsmanship has fallen off.
Forget about that.
Dramatically.
Can't get craftsmanship anymore.
But am I lying? Like there are buildings
in the 50s in South Florida. Well, even going all the way back to the 20s when they first started building South Florida, but you had a lot of immigrants from Europe, Cuba, that were skilled in crafts. Like you go into some of the ceilings of the Art Deco buildings. You know, look at some of the ceilings of the Art Deco buildings in Miami, and all of that trim is plaster. It's not some plastic thing that was put up there that you nailed into the corner.
Yeah.
You know, all of that is all handcrafted plaster, and that's gone. A lot of this is gone. You know, South Florida, the original houses built here were terrazzo floors, jalousie windows, and the inside of the houses were all the walls were stuccoed, no drywall. And the reason was because there was no goddamn air conditioning. And you had to keep these houses cool. And Florida has been hot always. So it's funny. I built a house for myself. I remodeled a house over here, and I did the walls all in plaster. And the house was 10 degrees cooler than any house on the street, just from the wall, because it keeps that. So that craftsmanship is gone. To do plaster on a whole wall, you know, I had an old guy come in. He's like 60 years old. Took him a month of fucking Sundays to get it finished. But that's the only person that could do it.
Yeah.
They're gone. They're gone.
I mean, you see it even in the condos that people are paying millions of dollars though
for.
I lived in one of the original luxury condos that went up in Miami in the 80s. All concrete, massive closets. Building made it through how many hurricanes and storms. I had friends, on the other hand, who lived on Miami Beach in some of the newer, very, very high-end. I mean, you're talking about, this is years ago, paying
Windows
10 and 15.
Leaking,
uneven tiles. You could hear your neighbor, you know what I mean? Just horribly built. And the gentleman happened to be in construction, like his dad, general contracting in New York. And he was like, I cannot believe what I'm paying. He didn't own it. He was like, I would never buy in any of these buildings. He said, because the workmanship is just trash.
Shit.
It's trash. But you can't get mad. Again, I go back to, and I'm not blaming this on FIU, but if you're not investing in these trades and in these skilled kind of workers and laborers, then what do you get? You get the quick 360, because guess what? The building doesn't stop.
Yep.
There's thousands of people moving here. We need houses. We need buildings. We need development, all of this. And they're going to take what they can get. And so now we're paying more for lesser quality because we don't want to invest in it, and we don't want to hit the double tap the like button and say, nice work there, buddy. I don't know. It's wild to me because I would have thought not that long ago, we prided ourselves, like, American made.
Yeah.
Right? Whether it was clothing, cars, electronics, buildings.
We were the best at some point. We're not anymore.
But you can't get mad if you leave it to everybody else to do, right? What do they say? You want something done right?
I'm teaching my kid how to do this.
You want something done right, though what?
Do it.
You got to do it yourself. And that goes for us as a nation, right? If you want the shit done right, we got to get back to basics and encourage people to create quality work and to demand quality work and to want to be a part of that.
You know, 3 things. Good, cheap, and fast. Those are the 3 things.
What's the whole thing?
You can only get 2 of them.
Yeah.
You can get good and cheap, but it's going to take forever.
Mm-hmm.
You can get good and fast, but it's not going to be cheap.
Mm-hmm.
You know, these are the things that it's just the way it boils down.
And if you get cheap and fast, it ain't going to be good.
And that's today's, but that's today's.
Yeah. People want,
thing.
People are
cheap
better.
and fast.
Yep.
All we want is cheap and fast. We don't give 2 shits. That's all I care about is cheap and fast. And
that's actually a great conversation that we can have.
Yeah.
I like
all right.
Anyway, we're good.
Let's land the plane.
What?
Let's land the plane.
Yeah, let's land it. Well, that was episode 77. Episode 1 of season 3, though.
Episode 1 of season 3.
Like, subscribe, share, follow. Obviously, you can leave your comments. If you work in a trade, I would absolutely love to hear what your experience has been. Is it something that you encourage other, young people to get into? And I will add this one last thing too. You're never too old. That was one of the things that they were actually talking about. They were like, you have people that get to be 30 and think they've aged out of learning a trade or a craft, and it's no different than college.
I feel like stop learning.
You can always go back. Now, are you necessarily going to be the person wants to shimmy to the top of the Golden Gate Bridge to fix it? I don't know.
Not necessarily.
At 55.
There's plenty of other stuff.
But you can always learn new things, and you can always add additional skills to your repertoire. And if you have a kid who is showing any sort of inclination, whether you understand it or not, feed it.
Yep.
Like, I love that about you, Lenny. I think whether you liked what they were or you would still help them pursue it. So yeah. Anyway, drop your comments. We'll be back for more. We got lots to talk about in 2024. Hey, that rhymed. I'll see you.
Did it really though?
It did. Yeah. We'll be back with more. We have lots to talk about in 2024. More in 2024.
Yeah, okay. It was just a long rhyme.
All right, listen.
We prefer
Voltaire, relax.
What do we like haikus? Was that the little short ones?
Bye.
Bye.